Hi everybody, Hassan Sharik, regulated Canadian immigration consultant, back with another video on Canadian immigration. In today's video, we're going to talk about the PR stream for parents and grandparents 2020. For those of you who are interested in knowing about these details, stay tuned. For those of you who are watching my video for the first time, I practice as an RCIC here in Mississauga, Canada. And through my social media platforms, I upload videos on topics of Canadian immigration. So if you're interested in knowing anything about Canadian immigration, do consider subscribing. Your comments, suggestions, and feedback are greatly appreciated. The parents and grandparents PR stream 2020. That is the topic of discussion today. So, under Government of Canada's immigration policy, one of the objectives is family reunification. And in the same context, every year they have a stream in which eligible Canadian PR and citizens can sponsor their parents and grandparents for Canadian PR. Usually, the applications for this particular stream are accepted in the beginning of the year, but this year, due to the COVID situation, that did not happen. And there was some speculation that this might not be offered, or this stream might not be opened this particular year. But just a few days ago, the Minister of Immigration announced that they are going to start receiving expression of interest against 10,000 spots for this particular stream. Usually the number is around 20,000. That's what the targets were suggested. So what they've announced is that 10,000 such PR spots will be there for 2020, and the remainder 10,000 will be shifted to next year. So next year, 2021, will have a bigger number, which is 30,000 spots. In today's video, we are going to briefly have a look at the eligibility, like who can sponsor and who can be sponsored. We'll quickly have a look at the different stages of the process, the requirements. So first of all, who can be a sponsor? There are about 3 to 4 important requirements. First, you must be a Canadian citizen or permanent resident at the time of your application being submitted. So if you're not a Canadian PR or citizen, you cannot apply or sponsor your parents or grandparents for this stream. So for anybody who's on a work permit, on a temporary visa, or if your PR application is still in process, you're not eligible for this. You must also be 18 years or above. So just as I mentioned that it is parents and grandparents, so maybe some grandchildren who are in Canada, they can sponsor their grandparents, but they must be 18 years or above. Another important eligibility factor for the sponsor, is that you must be residing in Canada once you submit your application and once your parents or grandparents' PR application is assessed. So even if you're a Canadian citizen but you're based out of Canada, you're not eligible to apply for this particular stream. And lastly, but very importantly, you have to show a certain level of income to be eligible for this particular stream. And this level of income or financial ability has to be shown for last 3 tax years through your notice of assessments. And it is dependent on the family size. We'll talk in detail about how to calculate that family size. So these are the eligibilities for sponsor. Now coming towards the eligibility of the person being sponsored. So who can be sponsored? So as the name suggests, your parents, you can sponsor your parents, your mother and father. You submit one application and they're both made part of it. You can sponsor your grandparents as well. And If your parents or grandparents have a dependent child who is 22 years of age or less than that, and is not married or in a common law relationship, they can be made part of the same application, and they will be granted permanent residence along with your parents and grandparents. So just giving you an example, if you are sponsoring your parents and you have a sibling who is less than 22 years of age and is considered as a dependent child of your parents, they will be able to obtain PR through the same stream as part of your sponsorship application for your parents. But if that particular individual who is a dependent is above the age of 22, they will not be considered as dependent and cannot be part of this application. Or if they are 22 or less, but they are married or in a common law relationship, they are still not considered as a dependent. Looking at the process itself, this is like a two-staged process, or there are two different scrutiny element in. Um, as mentioned, first of all, you will be submitting your expression of interest between 13th of October up until 3 weeks from that time. Once you submit that, and if your application is picked, you will and you meet the basic eligibility requirements, you will be sent an ITA, an invitation to apply. Now, once you get the ITA, you have 60 days from that time to make your fee payments for sponsorship and the PR application. And you are supposed to mail all the required documents, the sponsors' required documents, as well as the people being sponsored, their PR application documents within 60 days from receiving the ITA. This is a paper based application, so you have to mail these documents, and these documents must be received by the processing office within 60 days from the date that you have your ITA. So it is important to have the required documents ready beforehand once you've submitted your initial expression of interest. In terms of the processing, first of all, they will look at the eligibility of sponsor. So if it is ascertained that you are eligible sponsor, all the requirements are there, then they'll move on towards processing of permanent residency applications. Right now, the average processing time for these applications is somewhere between 20 to 24 months. So you can expect that. Now, certain things to keep in mind is that all the eligibility requirements are supposed to be met at the time that you submit your application and at the time that an assessment is being made on the PR application of your parents. So just as I mentioned earlier on, that there are certain income requirements, which I'll just discuss in detail after this. You have to meet those income requirements at the stage of submission of your application and at the stage when the PR application assessment is being done for for the people who are being sponsored. Also, you have to be a resident of Canada at the time that you're submitting the application and at that time that the assessment is being done, and all other requirements as well. Now, let's look at the details of one of the most important requirements for this particular stream. As earlier mentioned, that you have to provide documentary evidence of having a certain level of financial ability to be eligible for sponsoring your parents or grandparents under this stream. Um, we'll we look at a few important details. First of all, you have to show financial ability for last 3 tax years. So if right now we're talking of this particular stream for 2020, it must be last 3 tax years: 2020, 2019, and 2018. And you have to show proof of certain level of income for these last 3 years, and this has to be shown through notice of assessments. And the exact level of income that you have to show it based on the number of family members for a particular application. Now, how will you calculate this number? So first, it is the immediate family for the person who is sponsoring. So say for instance, you are sponsoring your parents and you are married and you have one child, so it is three of you. And if it is both of your parents who are being sponsored and they don't have an eligible dependent child, it will be two of them, so the total family size will come out to be five. Another example, you are yourself married or in a common law relationship in Canada, it is two of you, and you have a child, so that's three of you. And say for instance you're sponsoring your parents who have a dependent child, one of your siblings who's less than 22 years of age. So it is three of them. So it is three of those plus three of you. So that's six people. So that's how the family composition will be calculated. Now, based on family calculation, the number of people in the family, there is a certain income level that you have to prove. For that, I'll on the screen you'll see a table for that, and I'll provide the link in the video as well, so you could have a look. Now, this income level is based on what is called as the low income cutoff, and the minimum necessary income. So usually it is LICO, low income cutoff, based on the composition of family, plus 30%. So whatever the LICO is for a year, you have to have 30% on top of that. So there is a figure, and you have to prove this for the last three tax years. That's the requirement. This particular year, because of the COVID situation, government has come up with a flexibility where they've made an exception that for the year 2020, you are not required to show the required income level at LICO plus 30%. If you are able to prove your income levels at LICO plus 30% for 2019 and 2018, and just the LICO income level for 2020, you are eligible to sponsor your parents. So this is an exception that they've done this year, which is great news for a lot of people whose income was impacted because of the COVID situation. The details for the exact amount that you're required will be provided in the description of the video. Now, one important aspect, which is whose income can be used for this particular stream. So, as I mentioned, if you are sponsoring, say, your parents, and say, for instance, if you're single, then it is you and only you who can use your own personal income levels to show the financial ability. If you are married or if you're in a common law relationship, you can have a co-signer, which can be your spouse or common law partner can become a co-signer, or simply putting it, a co-sponsor for this application. And in that case, jointly your income can be used to prove the financial ability. So say for instance, if you are married and you're sponsoring your parents, and only your income is not sufficient to meet the requirements of financial ability, your spouse can also be a co-signer, and if jointly your income is enough to meet the eligibility requirements, this can be used. The sponsorship obligations that are there will be on both of you in that case. Now, one important thing that I would mention here, and a lot of queries come in this instance, that can there be some other co-sponsor or co-signer as well, other than the spouse or common law partner, because in many instances, you might have your sibling who's also a Canadian permanent resident and citizen, and the two of you would want to sort of jointly sponsor your parents. That's not the case. That's not allowed. The only co-sponsor can be your spouse or common law partner. So these are all the details of parents and grandparents PR Stream 2020. Just a quick summary. If you are a Canadian citizen or permanent resident who's 18 years of age, has a certain income level for last 3 tax years, and if you are residing in Canada, you have the option of sponsoring your parents or grandparents and their eligible dependent children for a Canadian PR. Um, for this particular stream, you have to show the income level that you have to show can be shown by yourself and your spouse or common law partner. The applications will start, the initial applications or expression of interest will be accepted starting from 13th October for a period of 3 weeks. Then there will be an ITA which will be received in 60 days from that ITA. You're supposed to submit all the required documents. And in about 20 to 24 months' time, your parents or grandparents and their eligible dependent children can become Canadian permanent residents and move to Canada to live with you. That's all from my side for today. For those of you who have any questions or queries, feel free to post that in the comment section. If any of you would want to know more about this, like if you're interested in sponsoring your parents or grandparents, you can book a consultation session with us by writing on the email address. And if you would want to have your case represented and prepared through us, again, just shoot an email and we'll give you a price quote on that. Um, that's all for today. Take very good care of yourself and your families. Till the next time that we meet through another video. Bye bye.